Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Valeria Lipovetsky, and you are listening to the Not Alone podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Taylor Hill. We got to get real and raw, and I'm so thankful that she was so open and so gracious to share her experiences. She's so sweet, such a humble soul, and I'm really excited for you to hear more about her journey. If you guys don't know who Taylor Hill is, she is a world-renowned model. She's been with Victoria's Secret, I would say, for the past decade. She's also been in movies, so she's an actress, now an entrepreneur with her pet community platform and marketplace, Tate and Taylor. And I was so curious to sit down with her and honestly learn more about her. I feel like now we've reached this point where these big models, there used to be kind of a separation between the rest of us and them, and we didn't get to understand their personalities and who they are. And now with social media and mass communication, you see so much more of their stories and their personalities, and I wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear about her early modeling days. The girl started at 15. She was scouted out of nowhere and then basically dropped out of school and went into this insane, crazy world of modeling and fame and celebrities and making money at that age. So wanted to hear that experience, wanted to understand the Victoria's Secret lifestyle, the negatives and positives. And also, I've heard that Victoria's Secret is coming back with the fashion show. So we're talking a little bit about that because I am truly sitting, wishing and hoping for the old school Victoria's Secret glam show to come back on the road. Touch on that a little bit, and then of course touch on a story that she's been sharing, which is so beautiful and also very sad. The lost journey of her soul dog, Tate. I never owned a pet, so I never understood the kind of connections that humans can have with animals. And after listening to her story and talking about it, I get it now. So be prepared, you might shed a tear. Before we get into the conversation, Spotify now lets you leave comments on podcast episodes. I would love to know what you think. And if you're watching on Spotify, be sure to leave a comment and a rating. It truly helps the show, and I love hearing your feedback and your thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for your support, and let's dive in. I am dying to hear about the haircut.
Oh,
because to me, like, my hair means so much to me. It's like a representation of where I'm at in my life. So when I saw you cut your hair, I was like, I need to get information.
Yeah, well, I can tell you all about it. I mean, I cut it last year in September. It was, I had just gotten married, and I lost my dog, Tate. And I had been wanting to cut my hair for a really long time. And I always wanted to cut it really short like this. And it took a couple of months to sort of get everybody on board. And my agent wanted to do like a shoot around it and make sure it was cut by the right person and all that stuff. So I cut it in September of last year. And I've had a couple different versions of said haircut. And yeah, I'm kind of loving it, and this is where we're at right now. So
you said that this is like how you were meant to look. What did you mean by that?
I just feel like myself, and or kind of how I feel now about myself and this version of who I am, because I had the same haircut for a really long time, since I was 14 and started modeling. I had, hair down to my waist, and I cut it into a bob during the pandemic. It was really short, like to here, to my chin.
Yeah.
Sorry, to here. They're like, where? If they're listening, to my chin. And then I kind of grew it back out a bit because I didn't love that for myself. And then I got married and it was long again. And then I was like, you know what? Let's really go for it. And when I cut it, I really felt like this is who I've been trying to be for a year or so, Something was wrong. I was always really frustrated with my hair when it was growing back out. I always put it in a ponytail. It was always in a bun. I have like
Mhm.
kind of, I don't know if you can see, like little curls or
Yeah.
waves kind of. So like my natural hair texture is not easy to manage. It's kind of straight in the front, curly underneath. Like I kind of have 3 different things going on, and doing and styling my hair for my whole life has been very frustrating.
So you were ready.
So I was ready. So
I don't think people realize for a model at your status to make a change like that. I know you mentioned that it required to get everyone on board, but it's literally you have to make sure that all your agencies, like your agent, the brands you work with right now, it's a process.
yeah. Well, also I think because I've been doing this for so long, it's almost a welcome change because I've been modeling for 14 years. So everyone's seen me one way for 14 years.
Right.
And people were excited about the hair change. My agent was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. This is going to be so cool. And people were excited about it. But yeah, it was a bit of a process to actually, like I can't just walk into a salon and just say, cut my hair. You know, I have to make sure it's the kind of haircut I want, the person I want to cut it, does it, you know, so.
That's amazing. You mentioned you started modeling at 14. You were scouted.
Yes.
So you were walking down the street. Someone was like,
Kind of.
you. And that's it.
So I'm from Colorado. And in my hometown, there's what's called a dude ranch that it's basically, I mean, there's a couple different definitions or variations of what a dude ranch is, but essentially it's a working ranch. And this one in particular was also a hotel, so you could go and stay there. It was almost like a YMCA in a sense, and you could ride horses, do all these activities in my town where there's literally nothing to do. My mom took us there a lot because they have all of these like fun kids activities, pottery classes, art classes, horseback riding.
Sounds so wholesome.
It was a very Western kind of YMCA, you know, like country YMCA. And we would go there to do all those sort of activities. And there was a photo shoot happening there for like a Belk's ad, like a catalog. It's an American catalog, really old school. And the photographer that was shooting that catalog thought that I was one of the models, like the kids on set, and was like, oh, am I like shooting you tomorrow? And I was like, what? Shooting me? Like, what does that mean? And then he was like, oh, you're not a model. And I was like, no. And he was like, where are your parents? And I was like, my mom's over there. And he went and like talked to my mom and was like, she should be a model. And then they booked me and I shot that job there. And then
that's crazy. So you got scouted and same day booked a job.
Yeah.
Let me tell you of this.
So
it's
weird.
Meant to be. This episode is proudly brought to you by Lola V, the award-winning hair care line founded by the ever-fabulous and ever-iconic Jennifer Aniston. Listen, we all put our hair through so much. Coloring, heat styling, stress, aging, the list goes on. Bad diet, okay? That one is very important to notice. But right now, we're also battling the summer elements. So the sun, humidity, sweat. Jen got tired of the damage and the struggle of having to choose between hair products that work, but also ones that are actually good for us. So she did what every entrepreneur would do. She decided to create what she was looking for. Enter Lola V, your ultimate summer hair saver. Created with the finest natural clinical ingredients, Lola V makes sure that your hair feels luxurious, silky, and smooth all summer long. So ladies, let's say goodbye to sun-damaged, tangled hair and hello to shine, strength, and elegance. I have just received the Glossing Detangler and it is all about priming, shining, smoothing, and protecting. I'm very excited to try it. Obviously, my first impressions were to, spray it, and let me tell you, the smell on its own makes me very excited to dive into this. The scent is like a zesty citrus, calming rose petals. There's some lemongrass, green tea, a little bit of earthy woods. Honestly, smells like summer. So I am very excited to try it on and add it to my hair care routine. I'm very picky with the products that I add to my hair care routine because I don't have a lot of time and my hair needs a lot. of care and love. So I will keep you posted on this one. Check out all the Lola V products at your local Ulta Beauty location to experience the luxurious scent for yourself, or you can head directly to their website, lolav.com. As our loyal listeners, you get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use code Valeria at checkout. That's 15% off your order at LOLAVIE.com with promo code Valeria. Please note you can only use one promo code per order and discounts cannot be combined. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Your hair will thank you.
I still have the catalog and like the picture of me. I was like 14. It was like my first job ever. And I just thought, this is so weird.
What did it mean to you, like at 14, to get into modeling? Because I feel like I remember looking at modeling. I knew models, like I was aware of the fashion world. And when I started working in it, it was so intimidating and scary because I knew too much.
I didn't know anything. I knew America's Next Top Model and like Tyra Banks. But like that was TV, it's not, to me, it wasn't like, I don't know what it
you
was
just
really.
Showed up.
I
was
just,
what are we doing?
Okay. And then also because I started booking stuff, I just was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go here and do this. I would think I was too young. And when you're 14 and you don't have any concept of what it is you're really doing. And I didn't really think that it was something I would do for a living for the rest of my life. I just sort of thought, okay, I guess like if I'm booking this job, I'll go here and do that. And then it just goes and goes and goes. And here I am 14 years later.
So at no point in those early years were you like, this is what I'm going to be doing. Like, this is my career.
Not until I was a little bit older, I think, and had been doing it for a while and started learning what the industry was and what I wanted to do, who other models were, what other careers I admired and other people. Then I started feeling like, okay, these are my goals and this is what I want to do in this industry and, sort of follow in these sort of footsteps or have a similar career to this person. So yeah, that probably didn't start happening until I was maybe 16, 17. And then it was much more serious. But then I dropped out of high school at 15 because I was paying taxes. And my dad was like,
this doesn't make sense.
She has a full-time job and pays taxes. Okay. I don't know. It was so weird. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. But now looking back at the age of 14, 15, and then you do get pulled out of your, the childhood that all your friends are having. Looking at it from where you're at now, you're 28.
Yeah.
Do you have any feelings about it? Like, do you feel like you missed on anything at all?
No.
Nothing comes up?
No, because I love what I do so much that I couldn't wait to get out of school. I didn't like being in school. I didn't excel in an academic
environment.
I felt behind. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how to do math. It was really hard for me to keep up. Like I had to really study and, try really hard to pass my classes. And when I got to test out and drop out of high school, it was a huge relief. Huge.
Right.
And the more I started traveling and seeing the world and would come home, the more I felt distant from my friends there. The less I felt we had in common, and I started meeting girls my age in the modeling world who knew what I was going through and who understood what my life looked like now. Whereas when I went home, they just didn't get it, and they didn't know. Well, what do you mean you're not going to homecoming? Like, what do you mean you don't care about that? Like, so I just I got less and less attached to that, to school and that life there, and more excited about where I was going and what I was doing. So I felt ready for it, and I never felt like I belonged in school. So when I found a place where I felt really comfortable and felt like I belonged and felt excited to be in that environment, I didn't. I was ready to go.
Did it scare your parents or like your mom? How did they navigate? Because you're still forming. And you're flying around the world, you're making money, you have access to anything and everything.
Yeah.
You really have to, have a lot of trust in your child.
Yeah. My mom is amazing. She is a superhero. I really think she's incredible. I don't know how she did it. I'm sure she was just scared shitless. You know, I don't know what else to say other than both of us had no idea what we were walking into in modeling or fashion. She was like, what? And she, you know, I have 3 siblings and we're all 1 year apart from each other. And she used to travel with me everywhere. You know, she came with me everywhere. My siblings were teenagers around the same age as me, and they were at home sort of taking care of themselves, I guess, at that point, because mom was with me. And because she couldn't just let me wander the globe alone, you know? I know so many young models who do, though, but my mom would have never allowed it. She was like, I have to go with her. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I had a parent like that wanted to travel with me and made that sacrifice for me, because, you know, there's a lot of things that can happen, you know what I mean? And I think there's a couple different ways a modeling career can go, and you're exposed to a lot. And she just wanted to make sure that I was safe, protected, you know, treated well on set. People remembered that I was a child, not an adult, because, you know, you're 15 dressed up in women's clothing, and people forget that you're not a woman, you're 15.
Yeah, I feel like, especially for creatives, right? They have this idea in their heads, and there's just a lot of things they don't take into consideration. I've been in situations like that before, and I love that your mom could give that to you, to be there to make sure that you're grounded and protected.
Yeah.
Not a lot of girls get that chance, so that's beautiful. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/notalone and get on your way to being your best self. Life gets crazy. Schedules are packed if it's with kids' activities, big work projects, or honestly just adult life. It's so easy to let priorities slip. And even when we know that certain things make us happy, it's really hard to make time for those things. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Thankfully, we live at a time now where therapy is talked about so much, and all of us know and understand the benefits of it. But I think it's important to reiterate how therapy is not just something you go and do when you feel down. It's not just something that you go and seek out if you feel like you have trauma. It is so beneficial for all of us, no matter of your family history, if you're going through bad times, to get a better understanding of ourselves, learning positive coping skills, and most importantly, setting boundaries within ourselves and our relationships. So it truly empowers you to learn about yourself, understand yourself, and be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you need to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge, which is a huge benefit compared to in-person sessions. And listen, I get it. When it comes to starting therapy, people often feel quite apprehensive. That being said, just because something is unfamiliar or uncomfortable doesn't mean it should be dismissed. A lot of times I take that unfamiliar feeling as a sign that I need to explore more. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/notalone today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/notalone. What's your pivotal moment in terms of career? Was it 18 when you signed with VS?
I think for the masses and in terms of the public, for sure. Because, you know, I had been already modeling for 4 years before that, and I'd done shows and campaigns and shot with, you know, H&M and Forever 21, but it was always very young, sort of like the teenager kid stuff, like Abercrombie Kids and things like that. I'm aging myself. And when I started doing Victoria's Secret, it became more, you know, sort of pop culture, I think, because Victoria's Secret at the time was just sort of for the masses. Everybody
Yeah.
knew, you know,
It was the peak.
all of America knew what Victoria's Secret was, and people all over the world watched the Victoria's Secret fashion show. So it was going from maybe more of a niche modeling fashion crowd to literally the world knowing who you are in some way or another, or just being like, she walked the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and they have no idea who I am, but they're like, she looks familiar, you know, which didn't happen to me before. So I think it definitely changed the trajectory of my career and the type of career that I had after I did Victoria's Secret.
Did you ever experience any like identity, I don't want to say crisis, but like crisis? Especially when you're a child, you're starting this, you go back home, all of that is great, but then your career takes a whole other turn, and I'm sure it becomes such a fast pace, like publicity and interviews and all the things. It's still at an age where you're still trying to put yourself together. Like, who am I? What is my purpose? How did you navigate that?
Like any kid in college, but my college was the Victoria's Secret fashion show. I don't know. I definitely felt confused a lot. You know, I didn't have like a boyfriend until I was 18. So I didn't know how to, I was still very young and inexperienced in a lot of areas of my life when I was walking down the Victoria's Secret fashion show runway, and like the whole world is watching you. And I may not have been a household name like Adriana Lima or, you know, Behati or Candice and those women. I, you know, had just started and walked into that, but people definitely pay more attention when you start doing that type of a thing. So it was pretty crazy. And I was 18 and I was like, what's a boy? You know what I mean? Or what do I like? Who am I? Like, what's my favorite color? I don't know. You know, it was changing every day. And I think there was still a lot of me that was a child and a teenager that was trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do and learn and grow, and yet also have the expectation that I'm supposed to also be an adult, like a full-grown adult, and like understand the responsibilities of, you know, being in the room with all these people who are household names and have been doing it forever and are
like
women.
Formed personalities. Yeah, they knew exactly. I mean, that confidence, and that's what I'm trying to get to also, right? Like a lot of the confidence that was portrayed was, you know, when we talk about Adriana Lima or Giselle, like they knew who they were. Like when they walked that runway, you can feel that confidence in them. How does an 18-year-old walks that runway and portrays that same type of confidence?
I didn't. I don't.
Just fake it till you make it?
I'm still figuring it out. I don't know. I think, you know, they're amazing. That's why we look up to them, right? That's why they have had the careers that they've had, just the power, the force, the drive. Like, that's why they're some of my favorite models in the industry, you know. But when I was 18, no, I wasn't able or capable of doing that. And sometimes I still feel like I'm not there, you know. So I think it comes with time, and everybody does it in their own time and in their own way. And I also think, you know, that's their personalities, you know. They're fierce, they're strong, they went through things that are very different than what I went through, you know. So that also creates a sort of an alter ego for them, or a way for them to challenge or channel that into their work, you know. So I think there's always a different way of doing things and going about things. But yeah, I'm just
did you build an alter ego for yourself?
No.
So
I probably
Taylor,
should
the
have.
model. I'm kind of surprised because you also mentioned earlier you're like, I'm really shy.
Yeah.
So I was like, how does all of this connect?
It doesn't. It makes no sense. I don't know. So for me with modeling, it wasn't like a character or anything like that. Like I'm definitely still myself, but I used to do gymnastics and I used to dance. So I think for me, not very well by the way, just I loved it. I think for me, the physicality and the movements of modeling reminded me a lot of dance. So that's where I found comfort and the ability to be confident in doing it. Why I wasn't afraid or shy to be a model was because a lot of it was like being on a stage, you know, doing ballet or competing in meets and gymnastics, and you're on the beam and you can't fall off and everybody's staring at you and watching you and there's pressure on you. And I've felt those things and I've had those moments since I was 8 years old. So it wasn't shocking to be on set and have people stare at me because I was very used to coaches staring at me, critiquing me, telling me to do things differently or point your toes or, you know, sickle foot or like do all these things different. So to be a model and have people sort of dissect you or tell you, direct you from behind a camera was foreign, but not. I felt a sense of familiarity in it. So I just kind of like click into that kind of mode.
That's amazing. I didn't know that you have that background. It kind of makes sense how you've also managed to stay, stable within yourself, like knowing who you are, because, you know, when you are in that situation on set or people are looking at you or critiquing you, you take everything very personal.
Yeah.
So not a lot of girls, like it takes them a long time to learn how to separate between the two. But it seems like you kind of had it, where it's like, this is about my performance, not about who I am as a person.
Yeah, it was like that. I have a lot of respect for athletes because what they go through on a daily basis. I mean, I just got a small taste of it doing sports from a young age, but when it's your whole life being critiqued on things and what you're physically able to do, it has nothing to do with if you're a good person or, you know, or if you look good in the photo. You do look good in the photo, but they want something particular or they have something in mind, and it's your job as a model to physically execute that. And it's the same thing in sports or dance. So
yeah,
even though I was not a professional by all means, I absolutely wasn't going to the Olympics. Nope.
I mean, you went to your own kind of Olympics. You went to the Fashion Olympics.
Yeah.
You've been with Victoria's Secret. You're coming back now. There's a whole thing happening. It's like a revival.
Yeah.
Is it so exciting?
I'm excited to find out what it looks like and what that means. And I think for them, it's a really good thing that they're coming back and, you know, just doing it.
I feel like the world needs Victoria's Secret back.
Just being, but also just like being fresh and different and inclusive and
but also
better.
I'm excited to see the nostalgic part of it.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I
think
have to say,
if it's in the sense of what it was with the, you know, the wings and the beauty and the glamour of it all, but we're just like letting everybody feel included and involved in it. Like that makes my heart happy because I think that's what it should have always been. Because, you know, in the past, it's true that it was setting an unrealistic beauty standard for women. And I think that to no longer set that and say there is no beauty standard, you are beautiful and you want to feel powerful and feel like a Victoria's Secret angel. And that's the message that you want to portray as a brand, is that anybody can have that feeling. Anybody can do that. And we're all like that, no matter what, I think is really strong.
I have to share something though. I remember when we used to get together, a bunch of girls, and like watch the show, the unrealistic expectations, that was kind of like watching the Olympics. I don't think any of us sat there being like, my stomach doesn't look like that. Like we knew that these are creatures that are made from a different fabric. You know what I mean? So there was something to it where I was like, this just was so unattainable and so cool.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm excited to see what's like the new version of Victoria's Secret's going to look like.
It was getting to a point where it even sometimes being in it and like the press around it and people talking about it, I felt uncomfortable and I felt like I was doing a disservice to young women at that point at that time when it ended. So I'm really grateful that they've taken a step back, that they've reassessed, and that they're changing the messaging around it, because they have a responsibility in being like a beauty business in the industry of beauty and fashion. Like, so many young women follow and look at that, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe we weren't always thinking that, but I think now to portray that message and to say that is really irresponsible. And even for me, and how I feel now about my body and growing as a woman, I feel I wouldn't have made the cut today if I had tried out for Victoria's Secret then, like now, you know what I mean? Like if I, as me right now, walked in, I would have to try very hard to make it. And it's not fair, I think, like to put that on people.
Yeah.
To think that they have to do that to look.
I think also back then, I agree with you, there was so much around the Victoria. It wasn't just a show. It was like the whole preparation and what they eat and what they drink and what they do. And there was so much around it. And that was also very, you know, for me, it was also very exciting to hear about it. But there was nothing else. Like Victoria's Secret was the loudest brand out there, so you only saw that. There was nothing else that showed you that there's other people and other kind of shapes and other kind of women. But now there's just so much more. There's different brands doing different things. People tell different stories. It's so diverse and beautiful. And with mass communication today, I mean, you get to experience and see so many different people online. That's really cool. You mentioned about your relationship with your body. Did you ever experience something negative with your body throughout your modeling?
No, never. For me, like I never felt like I had to look a certain way or, you know, force myself to fit into clothes, or agents never told me to lose weight. And I got really lucky with that. I think a lot of it for me was probably timing, because I was so young when I was in the very beginning of my career, where the pressure on models was to be very thin, and the women and young girls who didn't look like that naturally were told to lose weight. They were told to, you know, do all these things and, you know, develop unhealthy relationships with their bodies and with food and exercise and things like that. And I think because I was a teenager and I was very young and I naturally was very slim, and I never had to worry about that stuff during that time. I never had those pressures. And then when I started growing and maturing and started becoming a woman and wasn't this big anymore, things started changing. And I think there was more talk about acceptance in, you know, in inclusivity and bodies in fashion. And when I started growing up and went from a size 0 to a size 4 and a size 6, and, you know, fluctuating up and down and kind of being 20, 21, 22, like lots of things
up
change.
On you.
And I didn't have to work out. I didn't have to care about what I ate. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, oh, whoa, like I have to like exercise and take care of myself and do all of those things. But because I had a sports background, I feel like my approach to fitness and exercise was always one of feeling good and sort of a mental thing than a physical thing. I never really exercised to look a certain way, but to feel a certain way. So I think for me, I always tried to come at it from that sort of approach, because it's a really slippery slope when you start working out to look a certain way, I think. Whether or not you're trying to go there, it's sometimes as a model, it can very easily go there. So, but I do always sometimes feel like an internal pressure on myself, not from people around me, not from my industry, not from clients that I work with, and certainly not my agents. Like, they are really supportive of me and say that you look amazing. You're a woman now. Like, you were a girl then. Like, you're a woman. People, I mean, I'm still working to this day, so something's you know what I mean? It's fine. But I think I compare myself as a 28-year-old to me when I was 18, and just sort of seeing how my body has changed and what my body has been through and how it's different, and trying to accept like I won't look like that because I'm not 18. And sometimes I still feel this pressure that I put on myself too, but I always try to like shake that off, because I do love my body. I do think that I'm beautiful, and I think I'm healthy, and I'm physically capable of everything that I could possibly want to do. I get to run, I can exercise, I can go to the gym, I can do Pilates, I do yoga, and I have fun doing those things. And I have to remember that, like, have fun moving your body. It should never be about like looking a certain way to feel good. So that's sort of where I try to sit in my head with all of it.
I feel like it's a woman's struggle in general throughout life, whether you're a Victoria's Secret model, a model, or just, existing in the world as a woman, a girl. And, for me, I experienced that when I had my kids, with every year, honestly, the body's changing. And it's so this whole culture of like, for women that have kids, it's like the bounce back. You're trying to go back to what you used to be, and we're romanticizing those times. And I think there's definitely a process of like mourning what was, not in a negative way, just like it's part of that, you're letting go. Just like that was me then, and this is me now. It takes a long time for girls, young women, and women throughout their lives to like get to that place. So it's gonna keep on going. I mean, if you're gonna start a family one day, or just gonna hit 40, 50, 60, you'll be like, okay, this is the new version and another version. I heard something that really stuck with me. It's a privilege to age. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's an amazing thing and a beautiful thing to be able to get older. It means that you are living life. And also, with age comes wisdom, I think, which is really interesting, because that's always been a saying that's been thrown around, it's the older the wiser, that kind of thing. But as you start to grow up and you start feeling that way, you're like, oh, whoa, this is real. And, when I was 18, I was insecure about so many things, and there were so many things I didn't know, and where I was going to go, and who I was going to be, or who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do or accomplish. And 10 years later, being 28, and my frontal lobe being whatever it's called,
fully developed
and feeling more confident in myself, there are so many things that I would never want to go. I don't want to go back there. I don't, even for the eat whatever you want, not have to work out sort of lifestyle. I would rather be exactly where I am in this exact my physical self, with the current, mental strength and wisdom and all the things that I know now. And I'll look back on 28-year-old Taylor and be like, oh, she was so dumb.
I always tell my friends, you couldn't pay me enough to go back to my 20s. That was a wonderful period of a lot of confusion and a lot of questions, a lot of identity crisis, a lot of adopting and then trying to break through my own limiting beliefs. So much of that. And then once you break through into your 30s, you're just like, you feel a weight comes off of you. And you look back, you're like, really? That's what I was worried about?
I know. It's true. It's happening now. I haven't hit 30 yet, but I'm real close. So I'm not afraid of it. I think in movies in the early 2000s, when I was a kid growing up, the way a 30-year-old woman was portrayed is hilarious. Because I look back on it now and I'm almost 30, and I'm like, that's so funny that being 30 was the end of the world. You were so old. It was you were basically a spinster. You know what I mean? Or I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating. This is my comedy routine. No, but I just think it's so funny how things have changed, and how when you do actually hit 30, you're like, what? No, like, you don't have to have anything figured out by 30. No. 30 is so young.
No. You officially start life at 40. Like, I feel like you have enough the questioning era, and then 30s is like, okay, you're taking action era, and then 40s you're like, okay, and I'm living, you know? So we have a long way to go.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But, you know, recently you've come out and you shared a really vulnerable moment in your life, which was losing your dog, Tate. And I have to be honest, I've never had a pet. So I never really understood that connection that a human can have to an animal. But when I heard you speak about Tate and about the connection you guys had, I was in tears. And I've never, again, never crossed my mind, you know, that kind of level of emotion. I can only imagine how difficult it was. It does, I'm sure it felt like losing a really significant figure in your life. But I would love for you to tell me a little bit about your relationship with Tate.
Tate was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it's so hard to explain because I totally get that, not understanding why I have such a big connection. You're like, it's an animal. What? Yeah. You can't talk to it. You can't, you know, well, I did talk to him, but you know what I mean? Like, you can't have a conversation. It's, how is that, how can you have that deep of a connection to a dog? But it's almost because of that, that's why it was so deep. Because to me, I grew up with dogs. I had one since I was 5 years old, and then my mom got another one when I was like 12, and then the one that we had since I was 5, she passed away when I was 17, and that was really, it was shocking. And it was really sudden, and I wasn't there when she died, and it was really confusing to be a teenager traveling, working, and like, you know, Maggie, she was like always supposed to be there, you know, she was there since I was 5 years old. Some of my first memories are with her there, and then she died. And that was one of the first confrontations with death that I ever had as a teenager, where you can like conceptualize what death means. I mean, I lost grandparents when I was 5, but I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know them. And when Maggie died, I was like, wait, so she's gone. I'll never see her again. I'll never hold her again. She'll never try to bite me again. She was so grumpy. And then I got Tate a year later, and I was 18 when I got him as a puppy. I was like obsessed with him, and I had no idea what I was doing because this was all on me. The responsibility of having this dog was all on me. And he taught me so much, like responsibility, taking care of something other than yourself, being selfless, cleaning, cooking. I had to feed him. I had to think about him. I had to take him to the vet. I had to make sure he had his shots. I had to make sure he was healthy. I had to make sure he was well behaved. I had to do all of these things to ensure that he would be confident, happy, and a very good boy. And he was the best dog in the whole world. I think he knew that I was an idiot, had no idea what I was doing, and was like, I'm going to have to raise myself because this girl is lost. And he did. He was the best. And also, dogs are so amazing because, and cats really, and really animals in general, like horses as well, I think they have this like consciousness that I can't explain that people don't have. The way you can connect and bond with an animal is so different than a human relationship because I feel like they are so pure. They're souls. They have no other intention. They're not selfish. They're not thinking about, you know, what can I get from this relationship? You know, they don't have a level of consciousness that I think humans have, to the point where we can do things that are not good, you know? Yeah. You have to try to be a good person, you know? It's an effort and something that you do every day to grow, to learn, to be better, to be a good person. But animals don't have to do that. They are good. They're innately good. They're sweet. They're innocent. They're like babies, you know? And they never change. And they never grow into adults that, you know, Mom, I hate you. You know,
oh man, yeah.
they never do that, you know? And I think that a relationship that you can have with an animal is so pure. It is the definition of unconditional love, which Tate taught me. Unconditional love, to love someone no matter what they've, you know. I made so many mistakes with him probably that I'm unaware of, and if he was a human boy, he'd be up maybe, you know. I don't know what he'd be like, but because he was my dog, he was the sweetest, kindest, forgiving. You know, if he did something wrong and I was so mad at him, he'd be like, I'm so sorry, like anything for you, I love you, you know, like the love they give you, and they just want you to love them.
I feel like if you've never, you need to experience it to
Yeah.
understand it. Because
And
to me, it sounds, you know.
can't conceptualize that.
Yeah.
You're just like, what
I
do you
mean,
mean?
I love my kids so much,
Yeah.
but, you know, when you say it's this unconditional love that just never change, and they're this really pure beings, it's insane.
And they
I'm getting
kind
a
of
dog after this, just so you know.
you 100% should. I think you should do it. But yeah, I just think that they're special creatures, and Tate was so important to me. I mean, he was my soulmate. I know that probably sounds so crazy because I'm married and like totally in love,
You
but
can have many soulmates.
he was my soulmate. Like I will never love anyone the way I love Tate. I have another dog. His name is Salem, and he's gorgeous, and I also love him so much in such a different way. But Tate was so special. Like, he's a once in a lifetime kind of love, and I could get emotional because I know I'll never love anyone that way ever again. And that's like the beauty of it. That's why dogs are so special, because if you get to have that love and you know what that love feels like, it can't be duplicated. You can't have it again. And that's the beauty of it. That's why you have to love them for when they're here and appreciate the time that you get to have with them, because it will never happen again. It can't be replicated, and you will never feel it again. So it's so heartbreaking when they leave, but they're meant to teach us something and better our lives. And the amount of love I was able to have and give Tate prepared me for being able to open my heart and provide that maybe for Salem, because Salem is a rescue. I got him at 6 months old. He has a very different life background and story from Tate, and being able to bring him into my life, I feel like, is another blessing and another experience, and he's going to teach me so much, and I'm already feel so connected to him, and it's wildly different than what I felt with Tate. So it's interesting to see the growth and how things change and evolve.
You know, from us, we've been talking about getting a dog, and one of the main reasons we haven't really done it yet was because of that heartbreak. I've seen some of my friends, although I didn't understand it, but I've seen the heartbreak that is caused when the animal passes away or is sick or anything like that. And I'm just like, oh, how do I don't know if I want to do this, right? But I mean, it's something I guess you deal with every time you get into any kind of relationship, right? You're taking that risk of being heartbroken, losing. Yeah.
I mean, it's the circle of life. I mean, it's what we do as humans. I mean, you're going to fall in love, and whether that's with a child or a partner or a dog or a cat or a horse or a chicken, like it doesn't matter. There will be heartbreak in so many different ways, you know, and loss is inevitable. And I think that's something that pets or having a love like a dog can teach you and help you cope with and deal with grief and loss and love, and opening up yourself again and letting love in again and evolving and growing. Because I will never move on from Tate. I will mourn his death for the rest of my life, but he wouldn't want me to not open my heart back up again. He wouldn't want me to not love again. He wouldn't want me to not bring another dog into my life, especially a dog like Salem, who I get to help. And he's, you know, well, he really rescued me, but still, like, you know, it's just, you have to make baby steps to heal and grow, not necessarily move on, but just like keep going and keep living, and I'll see him one day.
Those are beautiful lessons.
Yeah.
Beautiful lessons. And I know that I know you've experienced another loss, which was the unplanned pregnancy.
Yeah.
It was very moving to me to hear your reflection on it. I shared with you that I listened to your episode with Jay Shetty. And what struck me the most was how you felt at first when you found out that you were pregnant, how you felt upset because it was kind of against all odds.
Yeah.
And you were really scared. And then after you lost the pregnancy, you were upset that you lost it and you were really scared. So it's this living in this duality. Tell me about your story of the pregnancy, but also the process that you went through.
Yeah, I conceived on an IUD. I had an IUD for 3 years, and I don't really know how it happened. I don't really understand because I'm not a medical professional. But
there's always that like 0.0001%.
Exactly, and it was me.
Yeah.
I did get pregnant on an IUD, and you know, I was told it's kind of like 50-50. You know, it wasn't ectopic. It was in my uterus. You know, the doctor said it could have just like fallen into my cervix a little bit, and then that created a space for an embryo to attach itself to the, I don't know, is that how it works? It's been a long time since reproductive health.
I don't know. I did not.
You're like, I've had children and I still don't know.
I just don't know necessarily the process.
So I guess like that's how that can happen. And then it was sort of just monitoring it and seeing, is it going to stick or not? So it was just like any regular pregnancy. Like you get pregnant and you just wait 12 weeks.
Right.
And then you wait 14 weeks. And then you kind of start telling people at 16 weeks or, you know, whatever the usual or however the average, like whatever the average is. I've never gotten that far, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I got to about 9 weeks, and that's when I miscarried, was 9 weeks. So it was really strange. I just kind of like, she said, you know, you'll probably miscarry really early, really soon. Like if that's going to happen, then you're going to notice spotting and this and that. And like, these are the symptoms and like things to look out for. We'll give it 10 days, then come back in for, backtrack. I found out I was pregnant at 5 weeks. So I couldn't get an ultrasound until 6.5 weeks to like see everything, I guess. So
but I can imagine the mental gymnastics that you are like going through from the time you found out until that week and a half.
Yeah.
Like, who am I? What do? Am I gonna be a mother? Do I want to be a mother? Like, why?
I just didn't. I was just like, okay. So I waited till I could have an ultrasound, and then she was like, "This is what a miscarriage looks like. This is what it feels like." I would wait 10 days from this ultrasound and like come back and we'll check again. Checked again, everything fine, no bleeding, no spotting, like everything normal. Weeks go by and I get to 9 weeks and then there's like some spotting and I call her, I'm like, there's spotting, and she's like, what's it like? It's dark, it's little, it's like not that, it's kind of like right before you get your period kind of. And she was like, okay, well that's normal, like that's fine, you know, what to look out for is bright red blood, like everything before that is fine, like and totally normal. And I was like, okay. So, you know, a day goes by and then sure enough there's bright red blood, like a little bit in the whatever looks like the normal spotting is. I was like, okay, well it's just a little bit, like, I don't know, maybe. And then obviously it gets more and more and more. And so this was in 2021 and it was still sort of COVID-y times. So my husband is British and during that time he couldn't come into the US. So unless he quarantined for 2 weeks in a green zone, which he had done before. So he was with me in 2021, he quarantined, he came in for our friend's wedding and he did that and we were in the States together for a while. And He was on an ESTA, so he has to leave after 90 days. Like, he can't stay in the US for more than 90 days at a time. So he had to go back. And because of COVID, it made it very difficult for me to get to him as well. Because of all of these travel restrictions, we couldn't see each other easily. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was alone, and he was in England, and I couldn't get there, and he couldn't come to me he had to quarantine for 2 weeks to even get to me. So, by the time he was like considering coming to quarantine was then a couple weeks later when I started to miscarry. And so I was also alone for that too. And it was really strange because, I was physically alone. All he wanted to do was be with me, obviously. Like, it was heartbreaking for both of us. And it was just a really strange time because there was all of these travel, we just couldn't get to each other. And my sister came with me to my doctor appointment, but she couldn't come in the room with me. She couldn't go into the hospital with me. I was alone for a lot of these things where it was just like shocking news because I was like, this isn't supposed to happen. Like, I don't want to be pregnant. I'm doing all the things to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So then I get pregnant and I like sort of pass all of these tests, and then it took a lot longer for me to have a miscarriage than the doctors thought it would. And like, I thought I was getting to that 12-week mark. And
were you already like playing it in your mind? Like, okay,
like,
I'm having a baby.
Well, maybe because, I never got to like 12 weeks. So I wasn't.
So that was your that's going to be a confirmation.
Yeah, because like with any pregnancy, it's common to have a miscarriage, which is something else. It's so crazy that I had no idea how it was 1 in 3 women can have one or will have one or have had one. So it's a strange thing to just be like in this headspace of I didn't want this. And then, well, maybe this is going to happen 50-50. Like, that's so crazy. So you can never get excited. And then I hate that. Why am I? No, that's not how I wanted my first, like, I'm pregnant experience to go is like, well, 50-50. What? So then when I did have my miscarriage, I was angry because I'm like, why? What's the point of all of this? Like, I don't get it. I didn't want to be pregnant in the first place. I wasn't allowed to have hope that maybe I would have a child, and I didn't have the child. So I was like, what? This is so annoying. I would have rather just not have gone through this at all. That's the whole point of birth control. So for me, it was just a wave of emotions and this strange parallel of emotions where it was just, I always say 2 things can be true at once because, I felt guilty for being relieved. I felt sad because a part of me wanted to have the child. I was at a place in my life where I was engaged. This is the person I'm going to marry, and this is who I do want to have a family with. So I wanted to have the child. Like, I would have, if it was a viable pregnancy, I would have kept the pregnancy. And I would have been like, okay, well, this is my timing. This is when I'm meant to be a parent. But like, it just didn't happen for me.
How did you like sort through the emotions even after? Because there's a lot of that left in you. Like, it makes a mark.
Yeah.
No?
It's really difficult to work through that. And I really feel for women who have gone through that, and in different ways than how even I went through it. I never want to obviously like minimize what I went through or anything like that, but I know I've heard so many stories from people and other women opening up to me and telling me their journeys and what they went through, and it is so devastating and heartbreaking, and it's something that's so difficult to process and to understand. I felt like a failure, but then I was like, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's so complex to sort of verbalize all of these things and put them into words. It's a very strange feeling that sometimes I still go through it. I definitely feel more comfortable and like healed in knowing what I went through, and I can, sit in the pain and the grief of everything and feel okay. It's not as painful. It's not as overwhelming. It's like an injury to your physical body, but it's something that happens to your heart or your spirit, where if you break a bone, it does heal, but you'll still have pains here and there, or feel these things like from the injury or from the accident, or there's a scar left, or a physical memory and reminder of the injury. But this is something that's like on our souls, or mark in our heart, so it's something that you're always like kind of trying to deal with, and figure it out in your brain, because there are so many emotions. And I really feel for people, because it's not easy, and it's not, you can't just like, okay, well, this happened and like I'm just gonna get over it and move on.
Right.
It's you're talking about life and creating life and birth and children, and it's very complicated, and it's a very emotional thing for someone to deal with, whether or not they want to have a family, or how they feel about being pregnant, the circumstances under which they fall pregnant. It's all so heavy.
Yeah.
So it's something,
especially for women, it's our bodies. There's such a sometimes disconnect between our minds and our bodies, and it's a whole world on its own. What would you say that experience taught you?
It taught me that I'm strong and I can get through anything, because, and that I have an amazing partner, because we learned a lot about each other going through that, and we learned a lot about how we need to be there for each other and to cope over a loss together, and something that we thought was going to happen at that time, but it didn't, and what that meant for us and our relationship. And I think, for me, it was really, it was a really interesting thing to learn about, the ability to process my emotions and like work through those things, and try my best to heal and grow from it, and feel okay in my physical self again, and in my emotional self. And I think that it did teach me a lot about how to process things like grief, or a complicated emotions like that you do have when it comes to that sort of stuff. So
have you gone to therapy? Like, where did you find those tools?
Yeah, I have been to therapy, but a lot of it I get from reading and writing and talking to people in my life, because therapy, of course, is an amazing tool and something that is an incredible thing if you have access to it.
Yeah.
So I do love therapy, and I love being able to talk about therapy, but I also totally understand that not everybody gets to go to therapy, and it's not accessible for everybody. And there were times in my life where it wasn't accessible to me, and it wasn't something that I was able to do or know how to do or find a therapist. And I've spoken to some and been like, I don't get this, I don't like this, and it didn't feel right until you find the right one. Therapy is like another whole other relationship, So there were times when where I didn't have therapy in my life for really hard things, but I love to read, and I think reading about things and learning about topics like that through books is really great. And also I've always loved writing, and for me, something that I've always done is like write to a person. So when I lost Tate, I would write letters to him, like, today I did this, or oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
That's really beautiful.
Like, I miss you today, or I wish you were here because I did this, or things like that. And I think
that helped to like
see the emotion it just brought me now. Like, it's so hard to like sit and feel those emotions, but there's no other way to heal than to feel them, than to like sit in it. And
which is so funny what, it's so contradictory to what we used to learn what strength is, where it's like you don't cry and you don't fall down and you don't show your weakness. Today, I mean, I'm so grateful that we reached this point where you have to do this in order to feel the strength. You have to be vulnerable in order to move on. It's beautiful to see you throwing yourself into that process.
Yeah. I mean, so I had my miscarriage on April 3rd. And on April 3rd, I love just like sitting there and writing about how I feel that day, like how I wake up. And because I've done that, I can look back on the day of April 3rd and like look at where I was mentally and see how far I've come. It's such a great tool, being able to write your experiences and write out where you're at emotionally. I find that it's really cathartic because it's just like, it is truly processing. It's putting it out of your mind and into written form and like processing that emotion.
Yeah.
And then being able to go back and look and read it and like re-feel those things and think like, I felt that way and I wrote those things, but now I write this and I feel this. And it's just like it's a physical reminder of your growth and where you're at in life. So for me, that's always been such a powerful tool and something that doesn't really cost anything. You don't have to, go to therapy to do it. And sometimes I feel like I process a lot more by doing that than I do sitting in therapy talking about it. If anything, I can bring that to a therapist and we can talk about it together and like it's more of a guided process, but that I've always found so like that to be so helpful.
To me, I from learning more and more about the female body and how we process emotions, something that we don't do often and well is release. We don't let things out. So verbal, to your point, is a wonderful way of talking about things, but it's not the solution for women. Women have to feel and they have to release. So I love that idea, and I actually got it from a few different people I spoke to in the mental health community, where the writing it, even like, the whole full moon where you write a letter and you can burn it, it's like you're releasing certain experiences, certain emotions. I think that is such a beautiful way to also communicate with Tate. Do you still write to him sometimes?
All the time. On his birthday, like I lost him on June 30th last year. And this year, I wrote like a little letter to him in my phone because I didn't have my notebook with me, but I was like on a plane and just thinking about him. And today's the day I lost you, like, dear Tate, like da 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 da. Like I do that all the time. And just like if I have a thought or a moment where I feel like I wish you were here because I saw this, like just like writing letters to him makes me feel like he's still here, or like he's still, his physical name and like his characteristics are still alive because I'm writing about him. So yeah,
that's so beautiful. And you're also honoring him in a bigger capacity. You started the company Tate and Taylor. So tell me a little bit about what's like the mission there? What is it about?
So I started Tate and Taylor because of my experience in my life with Tate and how like just kind of I just was so unprepared. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting into and getting a puppy. Like I learned a lot with Tate. And I think that there's a lot of people go through that when they get a dog for the first time and they're just like, where do I go? What do I do? What do I feed him? How do I do this? How do I do that? And while I still don't know everything, I don't claim to be an expert, and I am absolutely still learning and figuring it out. But I've been through life with Tate. I've loved and lost him, and I've been through puppy to senior, and Tate had cancer, and I went through that with him, and I was in the hospital with him, and I did chemotherapy treatments with him. I learned a lot in 9 years with Tate as a like a pet parent kind of. So for me, I really wanted to create something that I wish existed when I first got Tate. So sort of what we do is, everything on the website right now that I have is things that I've used with Tate in the past, or products that I really love, brands that I think that are amazing, but also something about the pet industry that I would love to just sort of take on or do differently or change is the fact that it's extremely oversaturated. There's so many products. There's no guidance in why you should get one thing over the other, like what makes this good, what makes this not as good. There's no sort of curation, I guess you could say. So for me, something that I really wanted to do was, find brands and founders and people with amazing stories and backgrounds and, innovating the industry and like doing things differently, because I think that being able to support people's journeys and stories as entrepreneurs and founders, especially in the pet space, is something that is really exciting to me, because I love being able to find all of these cool products and brands and do all these really fun things with them and like make content and like talk to them about why they started their business. And we have
so cool.
It's really cool, and I've met so many amazing people by doing that so far. Like one of the brands that we have on the website now, it's called Floof, and it's a dog beauty company, and they have shampoo, they have conditioner, they have wipes, they have brushes, and it's like grooming for dogs.
Oh my God, I want to tell you that my For You page on TikTok is all like dog
Spa.
self-care spa day. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
With all these treatments.
It's amazing. I'm like, these dogs are so good. Salem would never. He tried to kill me because he thought I was drowning him. So that was a whole thing. But I just love, so the founder of Floof, Michael, he's so cool, and he's so amazing because he went through this whole thing with his dog where they were having skin issues and, taking them to the groomer and coming back and itching and rashes and couldn't figure out what it was. Everyone thought it was diet. It was ingredients in the shampoo and conditioner and the products that they were using, because they have, skin sensitivities just like people. And there's not a lot of research. So he worked with a dermatologist and like they developed this line, and it's incredible. Like the ingredients are amazing. They're researching, they're innovating, they're creating products that are like better for pets. And I think that that's really interesting to me and something that I was always looking for in taking care of Tate. So just being able to create a space and a platform where we can sort of lift those people up and like have conversations and like talk about why they're doing what they're doing and what makes their product great, and sort of supporting these businesses is something that's like super exciting to me. So that's what Tate and Taylor is and what I'm working on building right now. And
I love it.
My sweet angel, he'll live on forever.
That's such a beautiful way to honor him, honestly. Yeah. And there is a community aspect. Is there, so if people like get a dog and they're lost, is that a place where they could communicate with the community online to guide them?
Absolutely. Okay. I think that that's something that I really want to build and expand on, because, having had a dog with cancer, I wish that I had the ability to connect with someone who went through the same thing and recommend, you should go here and you should do this. Because when Tate first got sick, I didn't know that. So I'm calling oncologists and, hospitals trying to get him an appointment that are all a month from then. I'm like, he didn't make it a month from the day of his diagnosis to the day that he died. It was just under a month. Wow. So his appointment was for after he had already passed. And, a vet finally told me, why don't you just take him to the emergency room? And if you take him to the emergency room and they see the state that he's in, they'll take him up to oncology and he'll get an appointment with an oncologist right away. I'm like, why didn't they tell me that 2 weeks ago? I'm calling every hospital in the country trying to figure out how I'm going to get my dog to see an oncologist. Like, he needs to be treated for cancer. Like, what? So I didn't know those things. And, being able to create a space and
Oh, wow. So dramatic.
Florida, Miami, it's like Tennessee. We also have thunderstorms. Being able to create a community where hopefully we can do that and like connect people, ask and figure out and like find support where there wasn't any, I think that's all I want to do.
Oh, that's so amazing. I'm really excited to see how it's going to grow and how it's going to evolve and how it's going to become the place to go for any animal pet owner.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you love to read. I'm also a big reader, so I love asking people, like, if you could think of top 2, 3, 5 books that change your life, what would they be?
Change my life.
And change your life could be in a big way, but also in like a small, nice way,
Oh gosh.
I know I'm putting you on the
Asking
spot.
like books is like asking, what's your favorite movie? And then
I
all of
know.
a sudden,
Everything comes rushing in.
everything
nothing.
leaves my brain. I'm like, I've never seen movies. I don't know what are movies. What's a movie? I don't know. Name an actress.
Okay, the last book you've read.
Well, I'm currently reading the Sarah J. Maas series, Crescent City, because I read her series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Obsessed. Incredible books.
Such a cult.
I have
following.
to highly recommend that. That did change my life. I wasn't able to read a book for 6 months after because it was just completely shattered my being. And
Oh, wow.
it was amazing. But I love like fantasy, like, when I was a kid, Harry Potter was it, I loved it, so for me, that kind of realm and world is so amazing and fun to read. It's just escapism at its finest, and it's entertaining, and the storyline is so good, and you get connected to these characters, and I was ripping through these books like my life depended on it. And I love that about books. Like, I love the imagination. I love being able to put myself somewhere and like can't put it down, and it's just that's what makes it so fun. And that's why I love fiction. I feel like it's really good to have a balance of both. I think as adults, a lot of times we read to learn now, and we read a lot of nonfiction stuff, but the excitement and the youth and the imagination that
playfulness
pours out of me when I'm reading these types of books is like so much fun. So I love that kind of stuff. But I think a book that I recommend to a lot of people, it's not a new book. It's been around for a while. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters. It's a really good book. It's like this. It's really not that big. It's, I don't know, maybe 100 something pages, 200 pages. And it's a really good read because it's interesting, and it's a really cool perspective on spirituality and past lives. And it's about, I don't know if
it's so
I don't
funny.
want to give it away.
It's funny that you mention it because I think the past month you're probably the 5th person that mentioned that book. So this is a sign.
You have to read it.
Downloading it today.
Having had read that also really helps me. I read it before I ever felt grief, and it's something that I went back to and like tapped into and reread because it's really interesting, the concept and thinking about, have we had more than one life? Like, are the people in our lives people that we've lived with before? Because when you meet someone, you're like, I feel like I've known them forever.
Yeah,
it sort of gives that feeling it a name and really pinpoints what that feels like and makes you feel like maybe I have known them in another life. Maybe that is possible, and it's really interesting. So I loved that book, and I thought it was really great. There's a couple of others, but gosh, now I'm really
those are great. But I'm not a big fantasy reader, but you sold me on it, so I have a lot of reading to do.
If you're like to catch up on a plane or flying, or I love reading on airplanes. Like that's my favorite thing.
I love reading anywhere. It's amazing. Taylor, thank you so much for your time. This was so lovely.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
I had the best time.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't miss my newest episode right here. And if you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go and leave a review with your biggest takeaway. I love reading your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions for guests or topics, you can leave them in the comment section. And always remember, you are not alone.